What's up, you guys? Stoopzz back here with another video, and today I'm going to be covering some of the 8.1 recent changes that we see on MMO Champs. Some people were pissed off because I left the BlizzCon and I forgot to post the link for my last video of the spell changes in the description box below, so I will try not to make that same mistake. Also, you might be noticing that I'm wearing the same shirt for 4 videos in a row. That's because I'm doing 4 videos in one day. We're cranking them out because I have fallen behind and I want to get these out there, and my voice is getting back to normal. So this is some of the more up-to-date changes that we have for 8.1. Instead of doing one class for this video, I'm going to try and cover some of the more notable changes. So Death Knights are just getting buffs all over the place. Frostworm's Fury, I can never say that, is just getting a flat 30% increase in terms of attack power scaling on that ability. I think Death Knights are going to be insane with so many of the changes that we are seeing. They are getting a ton of different buffs, and I really like that because Death Knights haven't seen too much play, and they do seem like they are going to be pretty insane in the next patch going into 8.1. So I told you, if you play a Death Knight, you should keep playing it. If you play a class that doesn't seem too strong, you should keep playing it, because over the time period, they're gonna get some buffs and buffs and buffs, no nerfs, and the other classes are gonna get nerfed. Other classes that were overpowered are gonna see some drawbacks, and you will shine if you stuck to that class and if you were dedicated or committed to playing a Death Knight. Fist of Fury getting a buff in terms of how much damage it's doing, so that is good. Windwalker Monks look to be insane going into the next patch. Now moving on to Holy Paladins. In my last video, I talked about Holy Paladins getting some pretty strong buffs, and every time I make a video, there's always a few people that say, way to go, Stoopzz, that class is gonna get nerfed now. And it does kind of seem that way, that every time I make a video, a week later or a day later, Blizzard makes a change, but it's obviously just a coincidence. I don't think Blizzard actually watches any of my videos. They're probably just picking up on the same things that I'm picking up, just in terms of playing the game and stuff like that. But we are seeing, and I saw this in the comments of my last video, Stoopzz, did you see that Blessed Hands are getting nerfed? The talent known as Blessed Hands is getting nerfed. Blessed Hands in Legion and for most of the beginning of BFA made it so you had an extra charge, one additional charge on all your blessing abilities. So that would be Blessing of Freedom, Blessing of Protection, and then Blessing of Sacrifice. Well, now here you can see that it is no longer all of your blessing spells, but it only gives you an extra charge on Blessing of Protection and Blessing of Freedom. So what does this mean, and how does this affect Paladins? Are they going to be a dead class? So right now we're going to hop onto the PTR, and you can see here Blessed Hands has been changed, and it only gives you one charge on Blessing of Protection and Freedom, and no longer on Blessing of Sacrifice. So what this really means is you can keep the same build that you had in the past, but when I talked about the change to Cleanse the Weak and how it would be very strong into Shadow Priests and Assassination Rogues, every time you cast a Holy Light or an ally with an Holy Light, you will cleanse all diseases and poisons, and whenever you dispel an ally within your aura, it will also clear them of all the same effects around them. So for example, let's say you have a Shadow Word Pain on you, and then he has a Shadow Word Pain on him, and you dispel yourself, he will also be cleansed of that. This is a very powerful buff that we saw, and we also saw a buff to your Divine Vision. Divine Vision extends your aura by 30 yards, and it also gives them a 15% shadow resist aura on all area of effects and damage over time effects. So in order to play, I would say, both of these talents, you are going to have to give up Blessing of Sacrifice or Ultimate Sacrifice, and you'd also have to give up your Blessed Hands. You can't have both of these in one, right? You only have 3 options. So if you wanted to play this build that you might find it use against Shadow Priests, or maybe you would use it against Warlocks or DKs, you weren't able to do this because of the limited amount of talent space. You could no longer have Blessed Hands or Ultimate Sacrifice. So this build in itself, and maybe you could swap up one of these for Ultimate Sacrifice if you wanted, just having one sack if you're fighting like an RPS and you know you need a sacrifice to save them on a kidney shot swap. Maybe you still want to run Blessed Hands for an extra bop. It just frees up your talent section a bit more. I kind of like this. I think it's nice to kind of nerf down the talents that are a little bit too strong. Ultimate Sacrifice or Blessed Hands in conjunction or combined is very strong, and having the other choices get buffed up a little bit, and then that one getting nerfed down slightly to a point where it's still pretty nice, but it's not too strong where you always select that talent. So I personally like this change. I think it gives you a lot more creativity in the choice of your honor talent. It frees up your build. We're going to see paladins using other builds probably than just stacking ultimate sacrifice and blessed hands. And now we can see a more, maybe a rot heavy build where you're dealing with rot pressure a lot better because of Cleanse the Weak, Divine Vision. We're also going to see a more healing oriented build where you have to cast more. So I like this version of Holy Paladin. I don't think the class is dead whatsoever. I think the class is still going to be very strong. It's just a nice way to even everything out and give you a little bit more creativity in terms of your honor talents. Now moving on to Discipline Priest, we see a change in atonement. It now is going to be at 15 seconds. It says 50 here, but I don't believe that's what it was on live anyway. So I don't think this is much of a change at all. I might be mistaken. You can let me know in the comment section below. We also have some changes to Assassination Rogues, just buffing Blindside, which is a nice little talent that you can select into. Maybe we won't see people using this. Maybe we will see players using this, but it's just another nice option. I like the idea of buffing abilities that players aren't using so we can have a little bit more creativity in our talents. Now, going on that same notion of wanting healers to cast more, we saw Blessed Hands getting nerfed. Meaning that you can't just use Blessing of Sacrifice. You actually have to probably heal a little bit more, and you cannot rely on sacrifice as much. We see the same for Resto Shamans. They're getting Ancestral Gift. It's a new honor talent, and when you activate this honor talent, you become immune to silence and interrupt effects after using Spirit Walker's Grace. It's a 5-second immunity. This could be very nice when fighting against Shadow Priests to ignore a blanket silence if you can predict it coming, which sometimes it's becoming very obvious. If you go into maybe a stun, into a fear, out of that you're probably going to be silenced. Also, you can use it to get out of Moonkin Root Beams if you think it's coming, or if you just need to cast a little bit more, which I expect you will need to going into 8.1 as a Resto Shaman. We also see the same for a new honor talent called Cleansing Waters. This is a great way to deal with the rot comps, which I suspect are going to be good in 8.1 with the Shadow Priest changes and the amount of damage they're going to be dealing. We also see some Warlock changes coming around the corner, so Cleansing Waters makes it so that it gives you an increased crit chance on your Chain Heal and Healing Rain, and when those spells crit, your allies will be dispelled of all harmful magical effects. So Healing Rain has not seen much use in PvP or Arena specifically, and so does Chain Heal, but now you can put down a Healing Rain, and if it crits, it will keep cleansing them of all magical harmful effects, and so does Chain Heal. So it's a great way to kind of deal with Shadow Priest going into 8.1, and I like this, but it also incentivizes you to cast a bit more. Also, to go on that same note of casting more, they're nerfing the core passive of Resto Shamans in terms of Rippling Waters, and Rippling Waters just makes it so you get an extra Riptide and then increases the healing on your Riptide, which is not going to be affected by your core passive any longer. So we're making it so that Riptide isn't as strong, and you're going to have to cast a bit more, which is nice to have Ancestral Gift or your Cleansing Waters, and having to cast more is just better because as a DPS, when you're trying to lock out the healer from keeping their allies alive for too long, if they're not casting, there's not much you can do other than CC that target, and it's kind of hard to CC a Resto Shaman who has things like Grounding, Shear, and they can just drop down an Earthen Totem before he gets CC'd, and his allies take like 0 damage. So yeah. Moving on to Demo Warlocks, we're seeing an increase to the damage of Demo Warlocks, just a straight increase on their Bombers ability, Bile Scourge Bombers, I think that's what it's pronounced as. That's getting a nice spell damage buff, and then also your Nether Portal will make it so that you can deal more damage. It's a 15-second duration versus 20, but you only need to spend 1 shard, which I think is going to result in a lot more damage. Now, moving on to Warriors very quickly here. I don't want to talk too much about this because I want to make a separate video on Arms Warriors, but they're getting some interesting changes to Warbreaker. But we're also seeing an increased damage and healing by 12% on Bladestorm. And I've heard a lot of people talking about a Bladestorm spec for Warriors, with these Bladestorm Azerite traits going into 8.1. But overall, that is just me covering the spell changes for 8.1 in the recent PTR changes. Holy Paladin seeing some changes, Death Knight seeing some positive changes, Windwalker Monk seeing some positive changes, Demo Warlock seeing some positive changes, and there are a lot more changes that we've seen in the previous week. So I bet DKs, Warlocks, Windwalker is going to be doing quite well. Shadow Priests are getting some insane changes as well, and then healers are looking like they have to cast a bit more, but they're getting some extra support when trying to deal with rot pressure as it seems quite obvious that Blizzard knows the meta might shift in that direction based on some of these 8.1 changes. But if you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to give the video a thumbs up. If you have any more questions about any of these changes or anything in general, you can leave those in the comment section below. Big shout out to everyone that supports me on Patreon, because we are one of the only PvP channels left here on YouTube for World of Warcraft that is somewhat active. If you guys are interested in supporting me on Patreon, a link to the page or on the screen here will be there, where you can support me and at the same time earn yourself some coaching. Try not to miss me on my Twitch live stream where I answer all of your guys' questions in depth. Do not forget to hit that sub button, and I'll see you guys next time.